Live from News Channel 8 in Tampa, Florida, this is Bucs Bonus on WFLA Now. Powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY.
This week, it's the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers visiting, let's not forget, the defending NFC South champion New Orleans Saints, quarterbacked by a familiar face for Bucs fans. It's going to be Tom Brady, the defense of the Tampa Bay Bucs, rowing their way into New Orleans to take on Jameis Winston and the New Orleans Saints. Hey there, everybody. JB Biunno here with you on Bucs Bonus, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY. Great to have, of course. Hey, let's hit the applause button for Karen Loftus of WFLA Sports. And
let's do that every week.
Every week, I think we need to give Karen just a big applause because she deserves it. She's traveling back to her former market. She's going to be in New Orleans for New Orleans Saints football against, of course, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Talking all about it here on Bucs Bonus. And let's just start. We're going to talk about Winston. We're going to talk all about the matchup with Brady. We're going to talk about this new look for the New Orleans Saints, for Sean Payton and the Saints. But let's start with the injuries. AB out another week here. Our wide receiver, Antonio Brown, is going to miss another week of Buccaneers football.
He is, and that's the only player that Bruce Arians said today in his press conference that was officially ruled out. And at this time, we don't have the official injury report for today. But when asked about Rob Gronkowski, Levante David, and Richard Sherman, he said there was a possibility that they could all go, and they all made progress at practice. But I don't think Antonio Brown's really a surprise that he's out. I mean, he was out at practice with a crutch, so I don't know how you go from midweek on a crutch to playing. So I don't think that was necessarily a surprise. And I don't think it's any bit of a concern. AB out there is always a good thing for the Bucs to have another weapon, but they are also having no shortage of receivers between Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, as we saw last week with Evans having 3 touchdowns. He now has 7 receiving touchdowns to lead the team, which is actually second in the NFL with 7 receiving touchdowns. So no shortage of weapons, but those are the injury updates we have as of now. The official injury report should be out shortly.
You can't sleep on the Saints. They're 4-2 behind, of course, the 6-1 Bucs here in the NFC South. So when we're talking about this matchup, you used the word that it wasn't a surprise for Antonio Brown, but it would be nice to see a surprise player perhaps come back to play in this 4:25 matchup, kickoff 4:25, New Orleans against the Buccaneers. It's going to be on Fox. But is there a surprise player that has been out in previous weeks who you think might actually take the field at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome?
Oh, probably equally. I think they would. All 3 of those guys that I mentioned would be back. Rob Gronkowski, I guess, I don't know if it would necessarily be a surprise because he has been progressing, but those rib injuries are tricky. And when you get involved with the lungs and stuff like that, you don't know how that's going to translate when you're actually, taking hits during a game. So maybe if I had to pick somebody, if I was going to be surprised, maybe Gronkowski, but he would, of course, be a huge boost to that offense just to have another threat, because the Saints really have athletic and physical guys in their secondary, and to have a big body like Rob Gronkowski to go up against those guys is going to be a major asset.
Let's talk about Gronk from just the perspective of, that is an injury that you really don't want to rush back from when we're talking about a rib injury, an injury to your midsection. Yep. If Gronkowski is to play, is there a chance that he's just seeing a few snaps here and there and they kind of ease him back into the offense? Or is it just Brady and Gronk, what we have known for so many years and so many? I mean, let's not forget, Gronk was having an outstanding season before the injury occurred. Yeah. So what kind of Gronk would we see if he does lace up his sneaks or lace up the cleats on Sunday?
I mean, I would say situationally, I don't think he's going to have the bulk of the receptions, which he really never has. He's just, been on the receiving end of some timely passes from Tom Brady in the end zone, because at one point he was leading the team. I think he had 4 of his touchdown receptions in the first 2 games. He had his touchdowns pretty early. So, I mean, he's one of those guys. I mean, but the same goes for Mike Evans, the toss it up to the end zone. And your guy's going to come down with it. So I think that's going to be more of the situation. I don't think they're going to overuse him by any stretch. And I think they're honestly going to try to just be physical to begin with, try to establish the run with Leonard Fournette there, and just be physical, because that really just works for them. And we've seen that. I think it was the Eagles game where they were really physical early, and then Leonard Fournette said they just didn't want to tackle him later. So then they started making a miss, and that opened other things up. So I think that's how the flow of the game is going to go. But you're talking about two top 10 defenses. So I think Bruce Arians was saying earlier in the week, this is one of the toughest defenses that they're going to go up against. They have a front four that's relentless, and that's probably one of the keys to the game that I'm focusing on is the pass rush from the Saints going up against the offensive line for the Bucs, who've been playing out of their mind. They've kept Brady upright. They've only allowed 9 sacks through 7 weeks, which is third in the NFL. So the Bucs offensive line has been playing amazing. The tight ends have been blocking, but the Bucs front four is going to be really, really tough. So that's one of the key pieces. If you're talking about keys to the game, that's something that I'm really looking for, is if they're going to give Brady the protection that he has had in recent weeks.
I remember telling you earlier on in the season that if I could buy a Bucs jersey this year, I'm still going to. I like to buy a Bucs jersey every year.
Okay.
The one that I'm buying this year is number 78. I love Tristan Wirfs.
I like that. You picked a good one.
What's not to love about somebody who loves to be out there and protect his quarterback, and he's perhaps the best lineman so far in what was a very stacked draft class when you're talking about offensive tackles. So talk about the protection game plan here for Brady. You say that is a key to this game.
Yeah.
It's going to be a raucous crowd there in New Orleans. They know that this is a new chapter for Saints football after the retirement of Drew Brees. They're going to see Jameis Winston take the field. But if you're a Saints fan, you're going to be screaming at the top of your lungs when Brady is on the field and really make sound, reverberate through Mercedes-Benz Superdome, and really try to encourage that defense to get after Brady, because I'm not revealing any secrets here. The Bucs without Tom Brady is very much similar to what we saw when Jameis Winston was leading the Buccaneers. It's just not the same football team.
The Dome on Halloween is going to be wild.
Crazy.
Like, New Orleans during Halloween is wild anyways. And I do have to point out, it's actually the Caesars Superdome.
Oh,
now.
it's no longer Mercedes-Benz.
Correct. It changed, I guess, title names, ownership names. I don't know what you would call that. But it's the Caesars Superdome now. So new look. They cleaned the dome. It's all new. But this is actually the only second game that the Saints have played there this season, because of course they were displaced because of Ida, and they've only had one game at the Dome since. So add all of that stuff up, and it's Halloween. It's going to be so loud. And those things are all intertwined. When you talk about a key piece being protection for Tom Brady, that's when the communication issues can resurface. Or, because we saw that during the Rams game. It was very loud on the road against the Rams. And the Bucs had some communication issues. So when you think about how that can affect, penalties, pre-snap penalties, and things along those lines, all of that is intertwined. So it's a matter of how they deal with the noise and how that translates to their communication and making sure they don't get caught up in any pre-snap penalties.
Football's about fun for me, and
Yeah.
I am very much a big believer in that the Buccaneers brand of football, going back to last season into this season, it's just more fun when Gronkowski is out on the field. And if you're a Saints fan,
I don't disagree.
it's more fun when you dress up. So a Halloween matchup. So if Gronk takes the field, it's going to be a zoo there in New Orleans, and I'm very excited for this matchup. But the matchup itself comes down to the former Tampa Bay Buccaneer quarterback, Jameis Winston, taking on right there in the center of your screen, the current Tampa Bay Buccaneer quarterback, Tom Brady, against Jameis Winston. Jameis has to be coming into this game with he could deny it all he wants in front of the cameras, but he's coming out there with something to prove on Sunday. There's no doubt in my mind.
He is, and Byron Leftwich talked about that this week also. Just how it's a natural thing when you're going back and there's so much familiarity with the franchise and with your former teammates and all of that. But one thing that I want to point out is that Mark Ingram is back with the Saints.
Yep.
And Jameis Winston just got a big boost to his arsenal. And when I was in New Orleans and I covered them, I saw AK, Alvin Kamara, and Mark Ingram together, and what they were able to do, the vibe that creates in their locker room. I mean, Mark Ingram is such a leader. And for Jameis to be able to get another person, like a physical back, in addition to Alvin Kamara, because Kamara has been, accounted for probably 2/3 of their offense. He certainly did in their last game against Seattle. So that's something that the Bucs defense needs to account for. We don't know if Mark Ingram is playing, but he was out at practice today. On Friday. So we'll have to see where that goes. But that dynamic duo, they're called Boom and Zoom. So that's a huge factor in this game and what the Bucs defense will have to account for as far as the Saints offensively. And then Jameis just having the confidence in some player that Mark Ingram, who used to play for the Saints, he already knows the playbook. He's good. I mean, Richard Sherman played in his first game with a whole new team.
That's right.
You know, on 3-4 days. He was signed on Wednesday and played on Sunday. So I don't see why Mark Ingram wouldn't. If he was out of practice today, like, he's already up to speed with the terminology and playbook. You know, he was with the Texans and then he was with the Ravens in between. But I think it was 2011 to 18, thereabouts. He was with the Saints. So the familiarity is there. So that's going to be tough.
Ingram being 31, I think the age is just a number in this case. Let's not forget, he was leading the Texans in carries when he was there in Houston.
He's a beast.
So he's still able to get the job done, and you're right, a change of pace from Alvin Kamara. The running game is going to, but again, the Tampa Bay Buccaneer run defense, the pass the rush defense has
first in the league.
I mean, and what they were able to do against Chicago and shutting that component of the game plan down and really just bully Justin Fields. This is the really what we have seen. The narrative, Karen, has been that this is the bread and butter for this team so far this year, is stopping the run and putting pressure, applying pressure to the quarterback.
And that's the encouraging thing, because if the Saints, I feel like most teams have that mentality, you know, of being physical and establishing the run first, right, to open up the passing game. If the Saints do that and the Bucs shut it down, they don't have much to speak of as far as a pass game. Mike Thomas is still not playing. We don't know if he's going to be back, when he's going to be back. So they're pretty slim in the offensive weapons in the receiving department. Granted, they are throwing the ball to Alvin Kamara. But their pass offense, let me see if their pass offense is 31st. The Saints is 31st in the league. So if the Bucs can, you know, stifle the run.
Stop Kamara,
stop Mark Ingram, who's certainly going to be physical from the jump. That's what they're up against in the pass game. The 31st passing offense in the league in the Saints.
If I'm Jameis Winston and I'm going out there with something to prove on Sunday, and I'm taking my very first snap, and I'm looking at Vita Vea, Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaq Barrett, and Devin White, all just clamoring to put him on his rear end. That's not a recipe for success. But Jameis is going to bring his very best come Sunday, and it'll be interesting. And if you're Tom Brady, let's just talk about Brady for a moment. All right, you don't have Antonio Brown. Maybe you get Gronkowski back. You still have potent weapons in Mike Evans. You still have Leonard Fournette playing extraordinarily well. You've got Chris Godwin. So for Brady, it's just, for him, I'm sure it's business as usual, though I would imagine it'll be a little bit strange for him to go into the Dome there in New Orleans and not see Drew Brees on the opposing sideline for a change.
Seriously, it's going to be really, really interesting, and I feel like Saints fans are probably still getting acclimated to it. This post-Drew Brees era that they're having.
Are they? You've been in New Orleans. You know that franchise fan base. Are they sold on Jameis, or is it still like this? We're not sure, because I remember all the preseason talk was, is it going to be Jameis? Is it going to be Taysom Hill? Who's going to be the post-Drew Brees quarterback? So what is the temperature right now with Saints fans? I mean, they're 4-2. What is the temperature with the fan base themselves buying into a Sean Payton-led offense with Jameis Winston at quarterback?
I think they definitely believe in Sean Payton and what he can do.
Right.
And I think they want to believe in Jameis Winston. But at 4-2, there's still more to prove. So I think that they want to, have faith in Jameis, and he's shown bright spots too. But there's also a very cult following for Taysom Hill, which we don't know his status either. He's been out for 3 weeks with a concussion. So we don't know if they're going to have that extra facet, that Swiss Army knife, to throw in some trick plays. I do think we are going to see some trick plays, some trickery. We saw that in the playoff game.
We did. The big Jameis, even with Drew Brees at quarterback, we were talking about before the stream began. There was still that bomb that Winston came in for, and it was a mic drop moment for Jameis. They lost the game in the end, but it was.
But at that point, it put them up by 3, and it was like, oh, this is what we're doing.
And you have to imagine it didn't feel good for the Saints to go home obviously, and their season be over. But you got to imagine that Jameis Winston, after that play, had a little bit of a smirk on his face driving home that night, because it was just a friendly reminder of what he was capable of with a big arm, and no one's doubting the arm strength. He's got the arm. It's just the decision making is what it always has come down to with Jameis Winston. Yeah, it really is. And switching gears here, I want to point out that reasons for people to play at a top level. You talk about Jameis Winston, wanting to play well against his former team, but then you also have a lot of Bucs players who have ties to the boot. You have a ton of LSU guys. You have Leonard Fournette, who's from New Orleans, Seven Ward from New Orleans, LSU. You have Devin White, who's from Louisiana. You have Kevin Minter, who went to LSU. Cyril Grayson, who went to LSU, who didn't play football there. He actually ran track there. But a lot of these guys, and when you talk about, a homecoming or a reunion for Jameis, but then you have this slew of guys with connections to Louisiana. I mean, they want to show up. They live and breathe Saints growing up. So to play in the Superdome is just something so special. And many of those guys played in the Superdome for like their high school championships and things like that. So that's another facet too. Like, Leonard Fournette, him and Devin are going to be amped up to go back there. I love the bond that the LSU connected players or Louisiana connected players have on this Bucs team. Karen Loftus, what are you going to be watching for specifically on Sunday? What are your keys to the game, and what do you think how do you think this is all going to unfold? Brady and the Bucs against Winston and the Saints in New Orleans Sunday, 4:25. Okay, so I touched on it earlier about the protection for Brady. I think that's something that really is going to be a key to the game, because Brady has been having a field day because he's had plenty of time to throw the ball. And I think if that happens, we could see, them put up a lot of points, as they have been. They're averaging 33 points per game, which is pretty impressive. The other thing, you want to talk about specific matchups. One matchup that I always look forward to between these two teams, Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans. Like, that is always a battle. So that's going to be very interesting, and see how that plays out and who wins that one-on-one there, because those two have quite the battles in the past. Does Mike Evans might have to think, if he catches a touchdown pass, especially on Lattimore, which is that's a nice moment for Evans and for Bucs fans. If he catches that pass, though, he might have to think a little bit harder about who he gives gives that football to. Well, we've already reached 600, so I don't think anybody needs a game ball for like 605. I feel like every time, though, every ball with Brady has some, you could argue, some significance. He's just, every time that he's taking the field, he's approaching some record, and it's just mind-blowing to see what he is doing at 44. Yeah. Incredible to have, of course, Karen Lowe hit the applause. We'll do applause on the in and on the out. We're going to double it up. For everybody watching, we're holding him to that. I expect applause on the front end and on the back end of these segments. Karen Loftus of WFLA Sports, boarding a flight, getting over there to New Orleans to cover New Orleans Saints against, yes, your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Great to be here with you on Bucs Bonus Friday at 3:30 here, always over the course of the Bucs season here on WFLA.com and the WFLA app. Bucs Bonus, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY. Karen, thanks so much for joining us. We will see you in New Orleans. And, folks, we'll see the Bucs and the Saints in New Orleans kickoff 4:25 this Sunday. We'll see who comes out on top. Thanks so much for joining us.